Hello and welcome to the Phenomenon Report. I'm Kelly Kleinman. Tonight's show is a bit of a blast from the past. We're going to explore the cases that really launched the legend of Bigfoot into American pop culture. Our first case is that of Albert Ostman, a prospector who claims that he was abducted by a Sasquatch and held captive for 6 days. He stated that the event took place near Toba Inlet, British Columbia in 1924. Now, his story is compelling and gives us some details and unique insight into Sasquatch behavior. It is definitely considered legacy video. And oh, by the way, legacy video is getting very, very hard to come by, especially on YouTube, because of what I call keyword saturation that buries the older content in favor of newer content, which unfortunately includes a lot of crap, a lot of hoaxes, and a lot of things that are simply unrelated to the topics that you're searching for. Now, the second half of the show will cover the Patterson-Gimlin video from the word, or I should say film, from the words of those who were involved. Roger Patterson, Robert Gimlin, and a fellow by the name of Bob Hieronymus, who claims he was in the Bigfoot suit that we know affectionately as Patty. Submitted for your approval, the case of Albert Ostman.
Of all the stories, the most unusual comes from a former Swedish prospector in BC, Albert Ostman. He told of this experience to Queen Elizabeth when she visited this province in 1959, and he's been cross-examined by scientists from all over the world.
The next thing I knew, I was picked up or moved, and first I thought I was in a snowslide or something like that, you know. And then when I start to wake up, you know, I remember I was on this fishing trip and there was no snow. So I didn't know what was going on until I was thrown on something moving. And I felt like it was a horse, or that I was on horseback. But after going a little while, I found out that it couldn't possibly be a horse. So then I started to think about what this Indian told me about Sasquatches. So, but I was trying to get at my sheath knife and cut the sleeping bag and get out. But the way I was, when he picked me up, I slid down in the bottom of the bag, and my sheath knife was underneath of me. I couldn't get hold of it, and he went up a steep mountain. I could feel myself rising, you know, going up, and he was puffing a little bit, you know, and kind of a cough, and so I knew damn well that was something unusual.
Did you yell, and were you scared, and did you struggle?
I wasn't scared. I've been with Indians a lot, and that's the funniest part of it. All the time I was never scared of them.
When you ended up in this small valley with a narrow entrance, did the big one, the old man, make it clear that you were his prisoner and that he didn't want you to go out that entrance?
I tried to go out one morning. After I'd been there just one night, I packed up my stuff, you know, that I had left, and I put the pack sack on my bag, and I put a shell in the barrel in the rifle, and I said, "My God, I'm going to get out if I have to shoot myself way out." But when I come to the opening, and he was standing there, and he was pushing against me like. And he said, "Uka, Uka." So I backed up to about 60 feet so I wouldn't be too close. And I was going to shoot him. But then I saw one time on a moving picture of a gorilla. And they knocked him down with high-powered rifles. There were 3 of them. It was on a movie. And they knocked him down, this gorilla with the bullets, Oh, several times, and he still come. So I thought, suppose I shoot this fella and it used to make him mad. Then I will be a goner. So I decided there must be some other way than shoot him, because I couldn't see whether a 30-30 would have done much good. If I had a 30 US, I think I would have tried it, but 30-30 wasn't big enough.
Do you think that they were as intelligent as humans?
No, they're smarter than humans in many ways. They sure avoid people.
Did you notice that they had a powerful smell? Did they smell strong?
Oh yeah. The only way I can describe the smell is, you imagine a bunkhouse and drying a lot of dirty socks. That's as near as I can explain it.
Why do you suppose they wanted you? Why did they kidnap you?
Well, that's only my own idea. I have nothing to prove it. But I believe that the old man's idea was for me to be a sweetheart for his daughter. That's the way why they didn't hurt me. They intended that I was going to stay with them.
Did she ever make any advances towards you?
Oh no, she was too young. It's hard to tell age on those things, people, you know. Now, that girl could have been, from 10 to 10, 11 years old to 15, 16. You see, she had no development of a lady. But the old lady's breasts, you know, they were like hanging like fur gloves. Yeah. In old country, it was a fella that saved himself from a mad bull by putting snuff in his eyes. And so I figured if I could get snuff in this fella's eyes, that would blind him, you know. And this morning, I had made coffee, good strong coffee, and I took a chew of snuff, just opened the box, and I took a good chew of snuff, and I was smacking my lips, you know, like it was tasting good. So, and the old man, you know, he come over, and he was sitting about 10 feet away from me. And so, as soon as I took his snuff, you know, he reached over to take the box. But I didn't want him to take the box. So I kind of hung on to it, but he grabbed it anyhow and took the whole box. And he emptied it all in his mouth. And after a while, you know, he grabbed my coffee tin and he drank the coffee and the on and all. And his eyes started to roll, you know, in his head. And I saw he was getting sick. So I thought, by God, now is the chance. So finally he stuck his head between his knees and they started rolling, you know, downhill and started to squeal. When he started for the spring, you know, to get water, I started for the opening. And the boy here ran over to the old lady and she started to squeal. And then I just made it in the opening and she was right behind me. So I fired one shot over her head. Then she turned around and she went the other way. And then I kept going. And I must have made some world record down that canyon.
Why did you keep this story to yourself for 30 years? Because you didn't want to be thought to be a nut?
Well, I tried to tell sometimes, you know, in camps, but they just laugh at you. And they wonder what you've been drinking and all that, you know. So I just tell them, yeah.
Did the Indians ever laugh at you when you told them about it?
No, most of the Indians, they believed it. This Indian that told me, he honestly believed it. I told him he was crazy when he told me about it. I said, it might have been thousands of years ago, but that is no such a thing now. Oh, he said, there may not be many, but there is some. And I know it is some.
And that, folks, was Albert Ostman. That interview taking place long ago from an event that occurred in 1924. It seems pretty legit. Certainly sounds very detailed, very specific, kind of details that you just don't get from your average Sasquatch sighting. Your next three interviews are going to be Roger Patterson, Robert Gimlin, and Bob Hieronymus. I want to apologize ahead of time for the Bob Hieronymus interview. I snatched it from another interview show, and quite frankly, the interviewer is as annoying as they come, and there's an awful lot of annoying interviewers. Your host, not included in that category. Enjoy these interviews. I'll see you on the other side.
I realized that the conception of these giant creatures, they're called Bigfoot, is a fantastic subject, and a lot of people scoff at it and don't believe it, but I believe it. I'm convinced that these creatures exist, and I'm going to prove it if it takes me the rest of my life. In 1967, the 20th of October, myself and Bob Gimlin were going into Northern California area. It's in the Humboldt County there. And this is about 40 miles back in the wilderness. The nearest little settlement is a town called Orleans. There's approximately 17,000 square miles in there that are unmapped. And it's a very primitive area, very rugged area. We had been in this area trying to find evidence of the giant creatures called Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And we had been in there about a week and a half. We were camped on the Bluff Creek there. This particular day, we had started up Bluff Creek and had gotten about 4 miles or so from our camp. And we had started to come around a bend. I was riding this little horse here. His name's Peanuts. And he shied and jumped backwards and reared up, and as he did, I tried to pull him down, and as I did so, I pulled too hard and we both fell to the ground. I was able to get up, and as I held the horse by the reins and come around him, I then looked over to my left, and I seen this creature, and it was standing by the creek there about 120 feet away from us. And then it started moving away from us, walked up the bank and turned around, looked at us again, and I was able to get into my saddlebags and get my camera out and start shooting pictures. I yelled at Bob to cover me in case the creature did turn and attack us. At this point, when I was able to start getting pictures, she had walked up the bank and was going on across this sandbar. Well, I ran directly at kind of a 3/4 from towards her actually, and run across the creek, was able to come up on the other side, and I got some fairly good pictures. The creature was massive. I would say that it was 7 to 7.5 feet tall and probably 350 to 500 pounds. It was taking an average of 43-inch stride walking, and they measured 14.5 inches long, each print, and 5.5 inches wide. Bob Gimlin had seen this thing much better than I did because he was looking at it directly and I was trying to look through the camera. However, I could see it plain enough, and it was quite a great moment for me.
We've seen the film, and therefore we've only got the impression, the visual impression of this creature. You and Bob Gimlin were there, So you had the chance of absorbing other sort of sensory impressions, such as sound or smell. Now, is there anything you can tell us about it which we cannot appreciate from the film?
We did detect a definite smell once that we had crossed the creek and got to the place where this creature had been. There was a strong, musky smell, a little hard for me to describe. It seemed somewhat like a dog that maybe had rolled in something dead and got into water afterwards, and this whole thing turned into a rather unpleasant odor.
Roger Patterson, do you believe what you saw? Or do you think you could possibly have been the victim of a hoax?
I don't believe that there was any possibility that this was a hoax. The creature, to both of us, appeared very natural. The muscle movement to us that it was much plainer, I think, than what it shows in the film. Indicated that it wasn't anything made up. This area is back in about 40 miles in from the nearest settlement, and it's in a very rugged terrain. For somebody to have been at the right place or know where we was going, because we didn't have anything planned, we were going in different directions, would have been extremely unlikely. It was hunting season up in that area at this time, and I doubt if anybody would be up there roaming around in something like this just for the fun of it.
Bit of a risk, in other words.
It'd be a tremendous risk for somebody because some people will shoot anything that looks like this.
Well, our impression of you is the impression that we've got from the film, and there you are riding in a very sort of elegant style through the forest. Now, is this your normal habitat? Is this what you normally do?
In the last few years has been practically all that I have been doing. I have a small horse ranch in Washington State, up out of Yakima, Washington, that I breed quarter horses, and also have some Australian dogs there that I breed. And this has been partly how some of my income has come in, and it kept me going on this thing.
What are your plans for the future?
We have an expedition that we're forming right now to go into the area, into that Northern California area, and also into other parts of the Northwest. And our ultimate goal is to capture one of these creatures alive and unharmed. We're also, of course, hoping to get pictures and find more tracks and find where these things exist the most. I've brought back pictures of this creature. I've brought back tape recordings of many, many people that have seen these things throughout the Northwest. It doesn't seem to, it hasn't done the job of proving it, and I didn't think it would. Now we have to capture one and prove this, and I might say that if it takes me the rest of my life, I'm going to do it. I realize that the conception of these giant creatures, they're called Bigfoot, is a fantastic subject, and a lot of people scoff at it and don't believe it, but I believe it. I'm convinced that these creatures exist, and I'm going to prove it if it takes me the rest of my life.
I'm Bob Gimlin. Was there? Yes. I was backing Roger Patterson up all the time. While he had the camera up, working with it, I was riding back of him. It was a Saturday, sunshiny, bright fall day, October 20th, to be exact. And it was just a warm, sunshiny day, and we were just riding up alongside the creek, on the east side of the creek. And about 4 miles from where we were camped, Roger was just riding. Roger was riding in front of me. I was leading the little pack horse. We were basically going out to camp about 40 miles further out than we'd been riding. We've been riding, making big circles every day. And so we were going to go on out, so we had a pack horse with us, a small pack horse. And when we were just riding up the creek bed, and Roger was taking pictures of the beautiful colors, of the fall colors of the trees and the brush and all that. And all at once, when we come around a bend in the creek, there one stood across the creek from us. And of course, Roger's horse just went berserk. Well, mine did too, but I was able to stay on him because, you know, I was a pretty good rider back in, I was only 36 years old. So I was a pretty good rider. And I stayed on my horse, and Roger finally, he didn't get actually dumped off his horse, but he got a little help getting off, and he grabbed the saddle bag cover, one flap that he had it on there, and unflapped it and got the camera out and started running across the creek, taking the picture. And he stumbled. It had a kind of a bank on the fore side, and so Roger had had the camera up to his eye, of course, and he kind of stumbled and fell down on his elbows, and he wasn't really sure if he got sand or whatever in the camera, because this is all happening really, really fast and excited.
Had you guys gone up there looking for Bigfoot?
Yes, trying to find more evidence. We were called down there with 3 different footprints, 3 different size of footprints around a piece of equipment. And by the time this was Labor Day weekend, and by the time I got down there, or we got down there, there'd been so many humans that come up and walked around and disturbed the tracks, plus it rained also. And so there was no real good footprints for casts or anything. So that's why we kind of stayed and just started riding in big circles. Well, not really circles, just wherever we could go, you know. And we'd usually cover about 25 miles a day, riding through the mountains and different locations. That's why we had decided to travel further way on back, a lot further back, and look for more evidence, because we hadn't found anything in a month. We'd been riding for a month and hadn't located anything.
How does that make you feel, knowing that you guys have this footage?
Well, it makes me feel really good. Of course, Roger's deceased, has been since 1972, and I can't speak for Roger, but I wish he was still alive so that he could enjoy the advancement that we have created. I say we as the whole, everybody that's involved in it has created over the years. You know, it started out where if you had seen a Bigfoot, you're a kook, you know, and nobody believed you. So, but now it's a whole different story. There's too many folks that come out with good evidence and sightings and all kinds of evidence. So they can't deny it any longer. And so the last few years has been really good. There's Bigfoot jerky, Bigfoot everything. And so I'm really pleased with the advancement that we have acquired over the years. The first 35 years was difficult. I'll never forget that few seconds that I did get to see her. It'll be with me the rest of my life. And so I feel like that I was pretty much, well, I won't say I was blessed, really blessed, but however reason or why the reason that I got to be the one that witnessed her, that I'm still alive, makes me feel really good. And there's been so much question about, do you feel that there was a young one, or, well, we never know, because there were 3 different sizes of footprints, and this was only about 3 miles from where the footprints were. And it indicated that there was a male, a female, and a youth. So, beings we only saw, well, I didn't realize it was a female at the time I saw it. I didn't know the difference. But beings we saw one, the possibility that there was the other 2 up in the woods somewhere around. And maybe that's why she walked away and did the things that she did. I'll call it she because we did find out later on when they found out she had mammary glands and so forth, that it was a female. And so to make that kind of a little bit plainer, it would be like she might be doing something to detour us away from the other two, or she might be traveling to where they were, or it was so many ifs.
That moment, do you remember that feeling?
Oh, well, the feeling, oh my God, yes, I remember the feeling. It was just, yes, they really do exist. You know, because I was kind of down the middle of the road. There were so many testimonials that Roger played to me about different folks that had seen them and witnessed tree knocks and tree bent limbs and stuff, and that I was kind of on the idea that, yeah, there probably is something. That's why I went down to see these footprints. That's why I did all the work that I did to get down there to see the footprints, and then they were all disturbed and ruined. And that's the other reason why we decided to stay and ride and look for more evidence. Is that was the only reason. And so to be able to run onto one, it was like, oh, God, there is one. And she's walking away, and I'm trying to hold my horse and stay on my horse until I did ride across the creek and stepped down off the horse, and she turned and made a head turn towards the way I'd be like about from this angle when I rode across the creek, and she was about 200 feet from me at that time, and just made that one turn and never even slowed down. So I had a rifle, and I knew I couldn't shoot if I had to shoot sitting on the horse jumping around. So I pulled the rifle out of the scabbard when I come down on the ground, and I never did raise it up to the shoulder or anything as long as it was walking away. And so there's been a lot of ridicule about, yeah, Bob had his rifle and all of that, ready to shoot it. I wasn't ready to shoot it. I just wanted to make sure if I had to, I could get a shot. And so there's a big difference between that and me raising the rifle up to shoot at it. But a lot of folks don't quite understand that. I mean, they probably never realized my hunting ability. I hunted big game all the years before that. I shot a lot of elk and deer and bear. Well, I never realized, because I was up on top of a 16-hand horse when I first saw her. So when they asked me, I said, oh, she was probably a little over 6 foot tall and massive muscle. You know, just bulk muscle. So I was way off as far, and they said, well, what do you think she weighed? And I said, oh, 300 pounds or more. Well, that would have been light. She probably weighed closer to 800 pounds. You know, knowing what I know now and all the evidence that was presented about it afterwards. You know, a person will I made a lot of mistakes about different things that they asked me when they first saw the film and then asked me about the film. Yeah, I said, oh, I'm 6 foot or a little over 6 foot. Well, but when I got down on the ground, it was a different story. I mean, but she was a little ways away from me then, and kind of, you can see she's kind of in a slouch position, kind of not really standing up straight. Or I guess that's about as straight as she walked all the time. But when she was just standing alongside the creek, she looked pretty doggone tall. But you know, you got to be careful when you make statements, because then they hold you to it all the rest of your life, and you say, well, hey, you know, it all happened so dramatically fast that I didn't have time to think about a lot of things, because I hadn't planned on seeing one, and seeing one just was boom, 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 and you know, and so therefore it was pretty dramatic.
Legends like Bigfoot seem to have always been around. But Bob Hieronymus says that the myth of the giant Yeti exploded onto the scene in the late 1960s when he was filmed in a remote part of Northern California wearing a furry ape suit. Bob says it was hard work. He spent time perfecting the now infamous arm-swinging, big-stepping Bigfoot walk and negotiated the uneven terrain through tiny slits in the scary-looking mask. He says the suit was hot, too, layered with heavy animal-like fur. Bob nearly fainted from the heat of the day. No sooner did the film of Bob hit the local news broadcast than the Bigfoot frenzy hit a feverish pitch.
Bigfoot, a huge, hairy, bad-smelling creature thought by some to stomp around in the snow.
Overnight, Bigfoot sightings were occurring, well, virtually everywhere. Bob could only laugh knowing that he was the real Bigfoot. Bob's finally going public, even though he knows that some folks still want to believe in the legend. Really Bigfoot, or just a big liar? The lie detector is soon to find out. Bob, you're here today with a very unusual claim, that you are actually Bigfoot.
That's right.
I don't think there are many people who have not seen that shadowy picture of this beast going through the woods, looking back over his shoulder. And you're telling me that that wasn't Sasquatch, that wasn't Bigfoot, that was you in a costume?
That was me in a costume in 1967 in the Roger Patterson Bigfoot film, yes.
How did this happen?
Well, I ran around with Roger for a while, and he figured that he would make a suit or have a suit made, have somebody wear it, they would take a film of it and prove to the world that, you know, there was a real Bigfoot. Well, I was a big, stout guy, you know, back then, and that's who they needed. They needed somebody they could trust, and they asked me if I would do it for $1,000.
$1,000 is a lot of money.
A lot of money then.
Yeah.
So heck yeah, as long as it's illegal, I'll do it, you know.
That's right.
Because it's not against the law to run around the woods with a suit on, you know. So I agreed to do it. So I met Roger up at his house. He lived about 15 miles above us up there. I went up there and tried the suit on.
So it was a furry suit. It was like a gorilla suit.
Yeah, it was a furry-looking thing, yeah.
And what was the head part like? How did you put it on?
I put it on like a football helmet. And I walked back and forth the way he wanted me to walk, the Bigfoot walk. And he said, that's perfect. That's just what we want. So a week or two later, took off for California. The Bluff Creek Road where the film was made, they had a camp set up there. And the next morning, we got up and had some coffee or whatever. I don't know if we cooked up or what, and they helped me into the suit. And Roger told me to go over this certain place and stand. And when he yelled or give me the signal to do the Bigfoot walk down through there.
And what was the Bigfoot walk? How would you describe it?
He wanted me to look kind of like a gorilla, you know, swing your arms back, you know, and take long strides. And then I had to turn and like, you know, they said no human being could turn like I did. Turn your hips, you know, as you're walking and turn back to look at it. Well, no big deal, but I walked down through there. They said, cut, you know, that's it, that's enough. And it was really, really hot that day in Northern California, and I was, sweat was just pouring off me in that thing, and I jumped down behind this big old tree had blown over, and I jumped in this big hole down there. I was afraid somebody was going to shoot me, you know, all this time going down through there.
Somebody might think you were the real thing and shoot you there.
Anybody probably would if they saw it, but I jumped down in this hole anyway, so I'd get this, at least got the head and the stuff off, you know, so I could get a little bit of air. And we got done, you know, with the filming and took the suit off, and we went back down to the camp where they were camped. And the next day I drove home and I went up to the local water hole where all those guys hung out, and I lifted the trunk up and I said, take a look at this. I didn't tell them what it was. I said, just look at this and do not forget what this looks like. Well, 2 or 3 weeks later, up come the movie, you know, on the television, the film. I said, aha, that's what you were doing, you know. They brought my horse home the next day, I think it was, and took the suit out of the car. That's the last I ever saw of that original Bigfoot suit.
Why did you show the suit to those guys?
Because I wanted them to know, you know, when they found out what it was, that I wasn't lying. But I really did do this.
When you saw on that film the Bigfoot image that so many of us saw and so many of us believed, what were you thinking at home all those years when we were buying this hook, line, and sinker?
I was hoping, well, maybe if I keep my mouth shut, someday they'll pay me the money.
So did you ever feel guilty?
No, because it wasn't illegal to do that, you know.
But you tricked America.
I was supposed to have been paid for wearing a suit in the woods, you know. I didn't care what they'd done with the suit, you know, or what they'd done with the film.
But you never felt bad that here you were part of a hoax that would trick people like me into believing there was a swamp monster running around out there.
No, it didn't bother me.
Did you ever think to yourself, now, y'all, this is wrong?
Well, he was going to make money off this. He had this pretty well planned out.
Make money off hoaxing people?
Makes money off a hoax, yeah. And he did.
You didn't?
I didn't.
And that's why you're here.
Like 2 or 3 of them that made lots and lots of money off it.
Yeah, that must anger you a lot, because you were used, basically.
I was used, yes. It's over, it's done. I decided that people should know the truth, that film was a hoax.
What's the reaction been back at home?
Everybody's, you know, says it's about time you come out, you know, told them the truth.
It's time for people to know the truth.
Right.
Well, are you ready to face the lie detector?
Yes, I am.
Bigfoot Bob?
Yes, I am.
All right. Let's get you hooked up.
Okie dokie.
Bob, you came on Lie Detector today to tell the whole nation that you are the real Bigfoot. We asked you a following relevant question. Was that you in a Bigfoot costume portrayed in the 1967 Patterson film? To which you answered yes. Bob, the lie detector has determined that you are... Bob, you're telling the truth.
Well, I always knew it was the truth. Everybody that I'm associated with, I've been around, knew it was the truth. I'm glad it's over. I had the best guy in the country give me this test. Now, I can prove to the world that I was in the Patterson Bigfoot film.
Bob, you've been upset mostly because back in 1967, the Pattersons promised you $1,000 for wearing that gorilla suit, and you were never paid for it.
I was never paid.
Does that still upset you to this day?
Oh yes. That's why I'm doing all this, to prove I was the man in the suit, and I never got paid.
What kind of impact do you think this is going to have on the Pattersons when this comes out that this was all a fraud, that you are actually the man in the gorilla suit?
Well, it'll tell them, it'll show them that the buck stops here. I mean, this is the end of it.
If we come out together and prove that that piece of film is nothing, I mean, it's fraudulent, then they can't continue to make money on this. Is that what I hear you saying?
That's the problem right there. You know, the buck will stop there. They don't want that. They've been paid for years and years and years every time that film has been shown.
Well, they told us we couldn't have it unless we paid $10,000. And then they told us even if we paid the $10,000, we couldn't have it because we're talking to you.
That's right. They're afraid of me.
So what do you say to them today?
Well, the truth's out. They've known it. The whole family's been, has known it for years.
Do you think they're going to forget Bigfoot now?
No. They won't be forgotten for a while.
The truth lives, and Bigfoot's myth does too.
It will still be around. Thank God it's over with.
Yes. You're vindicated. You've proved it today.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it. Testimony from those who claim to have been there and done that. But I do have one question that's never been asked. Why did Roger Patterson adamantly tell Bob Gimlin not to go after Patty as she waltzed away into the forest after being filmed? Was it because Bob Gimlin could have easily tracked down the man who claims he was in the costume and busted the hoax? Now, listening to Bob Gimlin tell the story, he and Patterson had spent long days and hours looking for the creature to film, eventually acting on a tip that tracks had been found in the Bluff Creek area. Patterson begged Robert Gimlin to accompany him in one last-ditch effort. Patterson owed people money, and it's evident he needed to produce something. Well, he certainly did. Did he get lucky? Did persistence pay off aside from extenuating circumstances? You be the judge. What he did do was influence generations of Sasquatch enthusiasts, and for that I'm forever grateful. I am one of those. On some level, he may have succeeded in his lifelong quest to prove the existence of Sasquatch. I have long been a believer in the Patterson-Gimlin film, but the jury is definitely out. The extenuating circumstances are still circumstances. But what are your thoughts after hearing the three main parties involved? Let's try and put this one to bed tonight. Yeah, fat chance. Leave your comments below. Subscribe, please subscribe. Share and like. I'm Kelly Kleinman, and you've been listening to the Phenomenon Report.